Welcome back, my sourdough bread makers. So today I'm going to show you how to make this roasted garlic with cheese and herb bread. Okay, let's start making our bread. So if you're here, I'm assuming that you have done the basic sourdough bread. The basic sourdough bread has 700 grams of water. Here I've increased it to 750. Only increase the water if you feel comfortable working with your dough, otherwise stick to 700. The reason I'm asking you to increase the water level is because the higher the hydration level, the more open the crumb texture and the thinner and crispier the crust is. So this only comes by experience. As you play around with your dough and make bread, you'll be able to increase the hydration by 25 gram or 50 gram at a time. Just remember, your dough does get wetter and trickier to work with. So I added my starter, I added my flours, and I gave it a good mix, and now my dough is ready to rest for about 40 to 60 minutes. Okay, now that my dough has relaxed, it's ready to be salted. So I add all the salt and water to it by squeezing the dough between my fingers. The dough will first break apart and then it will reform as you keep turning it in the bowl. Keep folding the dough on top of itself for about 15 to 20 times. Cover it and let it rest for 30 minutes. Okay, we're done with all the mixing and hard work. Now we go into the folding stage. This is where we develop flavor, and we do 3 folds for an hour and a half. I did go through the first fermentation very fast. If you want more detail, please press on the link below to take you to my foolproof sourdough bread. Okay, now I cover my dough and let it rest in the fridge for 8 to 10 hours. So after 8 to 10 hours in the fridge, my dough should have risen about 20 to 30%. It should feel a little bit airy, as you see, and you should have seen some rise on it. Now if you don't see the rise, that's okay. Just cover it up with the kitchen towel and let it sit at room temperature for another hour or so. Just keep an eye on it. So my dough feels really nice and airy. I shape it into 2 loaves. I let it rest for about 20 minutes while I go and prepare my garlic fillings. So I'm doing filling for 1 loaf. I'm using about 10 to 12 garlic cloves, but you can use as little or as many garlics as you want. Pour everything into a pan with about 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil and a good pinch of Italian seasoning. I would say about a teaspoon, and some chili peppers, depending if you want to kick in your bread or not. Put it on a simmer heat and let it simmer for about 4 to 5 minutes. Just keep an eye on it so you don't burn your garlic. Then put it aside, let it cool down while we go and roll our bread. Okay, my dough has rested for 20 minutes. Now I'm ready to open it up. And in order to do that, I'm going to slow it down a little bit so you can see how I handle the dough with the tip of my fingers. I'm being very gentle. One more tip is to get your hands a little bit wet. It helps to handle the dough better. So you pick it up gently and you stretch it. Do you see? So I still have a lot of bubbles in my dough. It's a lot easier than it looks. So if you do get a tear in there, it's okay. Just cover it up with more dough. Just spread it out as much as you can. It doesn't have to be a perfect square. Now my garlic's ready, it's sizzling hot, and I'm not gonna put it on my dough. It needs to cool down. Now here I'm using some cheddar cheese. You can use any kind of cheese you like, or just skip it. The filling with garlic and herbs will still taste delicious in the bread. Okay, so my garlic's cooled down, and I'm gonna spread it evenly over the dough before I do the folding. To handle the dough better, I make my hands a little bit wet. Then I pick up the two corners and fold the dough like so. Now fold the other way and then carefully tuck away the seams under the dough, being mindful that you're not tearing the dough here. So gently with my fingers, I turn the dough in order to create tension in my dough. So I'm not doing too many turns, maybe 4 or 5, because I don't want the garlic to leak out. The garlic will burn when I'm baking, so I'll try to keep it all intact inside the dough. My dough feels smooth and springy. It's ready to go in the proving basket. Okay, if you want a seeded crust, this is where you put it on. I usually spread my kitchen towel with the seeds of my choice. It could be sunflower, sesame, flax, just get creative. Or if you don't want seeds, just put flour. Then pick up your bread and flip it into your proving basket. As it's proving, all the seed will get inside the bread and it will stick to it, at least majority of it. So I go around and cover everything with the seed, making sure it's all covered. Okay, it's all covered with seeds and it's ready to be tucked away in the fridge for about 8 to 10 hours. So the day that we're going to do the bake, I'm going to preheat my oven at 500 and keep it at 500 for about half an hour before I put my bread in. The reason for that is that I want the oven to be super hot before I put the bread, so I get that initial rise. Okay, it's been 10 hours and my bread has gained some volume and it's ready to be baked. So I flip it over onto a parchment paper and I'm ready to score my bread. Now, here's the reason why you should score your bread is to allow it to expand during baking and also to control the direction in which the bread will expand. And it would avoid those big holes, the air pockets in your bread, so it is very important to score it pretty deep. I did use a bread knife to score my bread here because of the seeds. It's easier to cut through it. Now my oven, it's nice and hot and I have a lot of steam here. I'm ready to put my bread inside. Just be very mindful with your hands. You don't want to get burned. It's super hot. Put the lid on. I do bake my bread for 20 minutes with the lid on and 20 minutes without the lid. So in the first 20 minutes, my bread gained all its volume and the crust. And in the second 20 minutes, it's just browning. So my bread looks beautiful, it smells great. Now, if you need it to be a little bit more browner, then you keep it in for a couple of more minutes. And there you have it, garlic bread. So I hope I inspired you to give this a try. And hopefully I answered some of your bread questions. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.